Happy Thursday, everybody. It's spring break week here in Georgia. So it's been a fun week for us here. So thank you for everybody that's joining. Happy to see you guys. I would love to hear where, if anywhere, did you go for spring break? And I don't know if everybody's on spring break. I know that a lot of counties here in Georgia are, but I think that other places throughout the US, people may not be on the same spring break that we are. I know that I've been to like Florida before, and there were a couple of different places where I always find it interesting to sit there and talk to people and see, um, who's on spring break, whether it's in Georgia or Florida, different counties in Georgia, because even not all of the counties in Georgia are on the same spring breaks. We usually are all on the same like summer schedule, but not on the same like spring break and Christmas break and all of those good things, which I've never understood because why can't we just have it all be the same? But I'm not in charge of those things, so I don't get to say that. So it's been a good spring break so far, though. It's been sunny weather. The pollen's been a little bit crazy. My allergies have been trying to fight me on that, but it's been sunny so far. It's been good. It is very overcast today, and it's been sprinkling throughout. So I know we're probably going to be seeing some rain today and throughout the weekend, but I can't complain because for the first 3 or 4 days, it has been sunshine and about 80 degrees. So it's been super pretty. We've tried to take the kids out and just do like one little thing a day so that they can go back to school and, you know, we look like awesome parents because no, we didn't take them on a vacation, but at least we tried and did something to be with the kids and enjoy our time. So thank you guys for joining. Happy Thursday. So I actually received this article from my husband, and it was just really interesting because he said, I saw this and I wanted to just share it with you because I thought it was interesting because we personally live in Gwinnett County. So we basically have been born and raised. I've been born and raised in Gwinnett County. He was raised all over the world, but then his family landed in Gwinnett County and he's been here for the majority of his life. And then obviously once we got married and had kids, we've raised the children here as well. So majority of my time has been in Gwinnett County. So seeing this article, I kind of have mixed emotions about it. And so I wanted to share it with you guys and kind of get, your thoughts and things. But first, where are you joining us from today? And I think there will probably be a little bit less people on today because it's spring break. Not everybody's gonna join, but so to dive straight in, 10,000 people a year are moving to Gwinnett County. That number has jumped significantly because if you look at Gwinnett County 10 years ago compared to Gwinnett County now, it is a very, very large difference. And I'm praying to goodness, you guys, fingers crossed, that today my sharing app is working. So let's just see. Oh, praise Jesus. Y'all look at that there. Okay. So more people moving to Gwinnett County than anywhere else in Metro Atlanta. It's growing at a much faster rate than anywhere else in Metro Atlanta. In the last 3 years, nearly 20,000 people have moved to Gwinnett County. So in 2020, the county's population was 958,005. By July of 2022, the population had grown to 975,353. So for me, this is one of those things where I see positives and negatives because growing up here, I obviously find this, town, this county to be a really good one. It's always been diverse. It's always had good schools. It's always had parks. Like we're one of the number ones for parks and recreation. There's always been a lot of things going on here. And so I think that's kind of what draws a lot of people here to start with. A couple of points. I don't know if a lot of people have really paid attention to this, but Georgia as a whole was really more put on the map back in 1996. And it's funny because I did a reel on this and people laughed, but it's the truth. Because in 1996, we had the Olympics. And when Atlanta held the Olympics here, hosted the Olympics here, a lot of people from all over the world, and especially all over the country, came here to visit and stayed for the Olympics. And so that's really when a lot of people came here. And anytime that you're here for something, you obviously are going to go exploring. we have 4 seasons. The only season that really kills me is going to be the springtime because sinuses. I'm not a big fan of the cold, so I like that our winters are usually relatively short, although this year it seemed to just lag on for years, but I'm sure in retrospect it probably didn't. And I know that like as we were getting 60-degree temperatures, which is not warm to me, I had some clients that were packing up in New York and they almost did not make the closing here because they got snowed in New York as they were literally packing up and like driving out of New York. The snowstorm was coming down on them and they had like 6 or 8 feet of snow. So I have to put it into perspective that our winters probably are not the worst. But so back in 1996, when we had the Olympics, that's when after that, you really started to see a mass of people moving to Georgia. And so I really think that that's what put Georgia on the map. So Gwinnett County has always been a focus because they've always had some of the higher rated schools in the state. If you look at the state as a whole, Gwinnett County has had a lot of those schools. And I mentioned the parks and recreation. We have some of the top parks as well. So if we look at this over here, it talks about that some of the families are local and they've just made a move from, a lot of people made a move when COVID hit. They made a move from the city to the suburbs and they felt like that was a good location, that Gwinnett County was a good location. Other people have moved from out of state. He says he expects more multifamily homes or apartments and duplexes in Gwinnett County to keep up with the growth. Northside Gwinnett Hospital is already building a 17-floor patient tower in response to Gwinnett County's growing population. The former Gwinnett Place Mall is undergoing a 20-year plan to become a major live, work, and play destination. So let me pause right there because Gwinnett Place Mall was my mall. So when I grew up, and I was younger, I lived in Duluth. And so Gwinnett Place Mall was like the mall to go. It was the best mall. I still feel like the layout of Gwinnett Place Mall was one of the best. And I know that anybody that has been to Gwinnett Place Mall back in the day will agree with me. However, unfortunately, that mall was just older. It got run down. People didn't go there as much. A lot of the good stores left. And so that is actually where they've done a lot of different filming. I think they did some Stranger Things there. There's a couple of other things because the mall is vacant and it's a huge place. And so there's a lot of filming that has gone on in that mall. But there has been so many different ventures that have talked about doing things there and talked about building it into condos. There's been talks of building it into like a workspace, like a co-working place. There's been so many different things pitched on what Gwinnett Place Mall could be. And it's a really sad thing because it's this giant space that has so much potential, that's very centrally located, and it could provide so many different aspects. It could be a co-working place. It could be offices. It could be condos. I think that's a little far-fetched for me, but it does have a great central location. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do with it. The problem has been you can't help but look at the statistics that have gone on over there. They're not even statistics. I shouldn't use that word. It's not just statistics. If you look at the crime that has been committed over at Gwinnett Place Mall, and then in the last 5 years, it has increased because there's nothing going on there. It's just vacant parking lots. And so there has been an uptick in crime. So I definitely think that Gwinnett County is going to have to step it up when they're doing the renovations to that area. And when they're recreating whatever they're going to put there, they're going to have to step up the crime watch on that side of things, because, you know, that's definitely going to be, people are not going to want to go there if there's constant crime. That's one of the issues that has been in that location. So I'm sure that they have something that they're thinking to make that get back in line, because when I was growing up there and we were going to the mall, it wasn't like that. But obviously anytime you have a vacant, huge parking lot, things are going to happen. attack defense. It was the best mall ever. It was. If you grew up here, you knew Gwinnett Place Mall. Like that's the place that our parents would drop us off and like let us walk around, and you just felt safe. You really did. You always felt safe at that mall, and they had some really great stores. So going back to, let's just see what else they have to say. Medina says he's glad he ended up in Gwinnett County at the right time. Their kids are happy. Wife is happy. The Atlanta Regional Commission is working on projects long-term for the county, but it shouldn't be long until there are 1 million people in Gwinnett County alone. So what do you think about that? What do you think about the fact that Gwinnett County is going to be home to 1 million people? And I know I'm going to have both sides of the scale here. And there is both sides of the scale. On the one side, you have growth, which brings money, which brings development. There are a lot of areas like Gwinnett Place Mall that could be developed. It brings community. It brings diversity. So there's a lot of positives that can come off of having 1 million people within the county. On the flip side to that, a lot of people moved here to Gwinnett County for the reason of they did not like where they were. They did not like the fact that it was so congested. They didn't like that there was constant building going on. They didn't like all of the road work constantly. And unfortunately, as a Georgia resident since day one, I have to admit that Georgia is not great when it comes to the infrastructure. We wait until the 1 million people are here, and then we're like, oh, we should have built a road. We're going to build a road right now. And then traffic, yes. Increase in traffic, Naomi. That's exactly it. Traffic is horrendous anywhere you go. And they always wait until they get all of the people. And then they think about, oh, we probably should have added a road there. You know what? We've only got 1 lane. We're going to add 2 lanes. But now you're cutting in on my 1 lane to build your 2 lanes. Why didn't you build the 2 lanes before the 1 million people got here? That would have been a great help and a forethought. So Gwinnett County, please, I'm begging you. Like McGinnis Ferry, y'all have been building on McGinnis Ferry since 1992. I swear to God, just finish it up. Let's move on and then focus your efforts elsewhere. So there's got to be a balance between the infrastructure being built up prior to people moving here. Another thing is going to be the schools. And I had the pleasure of having breakfast with a wonderful, wonderful lady the other morning. She is somebody that I have been getting to know through the Chamber of Commerce. And I'm going to have her on as a guest in a couple of weeks. She and I have been talking about this. And she and I sat down and talked, and we have, different thoughts on different things. And obviously we are able to come together and vocalize our differences and the things that we agree on and just have a great conversation. And I feel like that's really where good conversation comes from. So I'm excited to have her on as a guest. She is part of the Gwinnett Chamber of Commerce, and she is a big deal in the Chamber of Commerce. And she is fighting for some of the schools that don't have as much as others, or maybe they have a minority as the majority of the school. She's going around and helping these kids, because it's one of the things that I never really thought of, but we didn't get it in school either, is when you're in school and you're getting ready to go off to college, she's sitting there and she's teaching them how to interview. She's teaching them all of the different jobs that are out there. They say, I want to go into construction. Well, that's great. But did you know that you don't just have to build houses or build things? There's so many things that are deeper levels to this. And so she's going into all of that. And I love the fact that she's really taking on the youth as something that is a benefit to her, because those youth are going to be what is our future. Naomi, I feel like us laid back people get pushed further and further out north. I've heard that. I really and truly have, because a lot of people don't want to deal with the hustle and bustle. And at first it was like, well, it's just in the city, or it's just in Buckhead. So if you lived in the suburbs, which was Duluth, Suwanee, Sugar Hill, Beaufort, you were fine. But now those areas, which is all Gwinnett County, have really become populated. And so you're moving either further north or further out to like Canton, Kennesaw, things like that. So I could agree with you. ATAC, I feel like the infrastructure needs to be beefed up. Traffic is already an issue. I would agree with you 100%. Like I said, I feel like they've been working on McGinnis Ferry forever. Then when they were working on McGinnis Ferry and Peachtree Industrial at the same time, forget it. You better hope that you can just work from home. But I think that we've seen a lot of people that have moved from the city out into the suburbs because there's been an uptick in crime in the city. There has. We just had Buckhead that was trying to secede from the city of Atlanta. It did not pass. And so actually the gentleman that was kind of leading that path said that he's packing up and leaving Buckhead, which I know for some people, they're like good riddance. Some people are sad to see him go. That's not what this topic is about. Everyone has their own political opinions, and I'm not going to do that on here. So, but I just think that a lot of people, when COVID hit, they left because of politics. They've left. And so people are seeing the benefit of being in the suburbs. But what is the suburbs to you? Is the suburbs Gwinnett County, where it's still very densely populated and getting more densely populated by the minute? Or is that a little bit further out where it's not so congested? Naomi, she sounds awesome, making the youth think outside the box. Yes, she was such a great person. And like I said, she's definitely a feminist, and I love that about her. You know, I am not personally, but I loved all of her ideas and where she was going with everything. And she and I sat and had breakfast for like 2 hours talking about everything. And her ideas are just so big, and she really has a servant's heart, and she's getting into the schools and talking with some of the kids and really making them think outside the box. And I was watching some of the interviews that she recorded with the children and how she helps them step up with their confidence. You know, you're not speaking loud enough. You don't feel confident to me. And I just love that, because I know that, you know, I personally didn't get that in school. And I know a lot of schools focus more on grades and academics. And while those things are definitely important, they need a coach. They need a coach that can kind of give them guidance as they get into the real world, because let's face it, the real world can be a scary place. Even as an adult, sometimes I feel like I need a coach and some guidance. So I love that about her. So what do you think? Give me your thoughts, especially those of you that live in Gwinnett County currently. What do you think of us crossing that 1 million people threshold living in Gwinnett County? Why do you think that they're here? What do you think it's going to do to our schools? That's one of the biggest questions when I was talking with this about a fellow coworker, was the schools, because a lot of Gwinnett County schools are packed. Mill Creek was one of the largest schools and had more kids in that school than any other school in the entire state of Georgia. And so they ended up building a second school, but it took a while for them to get second year open. And so there were a lot of kids in those classes. The teacher to student ratio was off there for a little bit. And I know that a lot of parents had complaints. And so I feel like Gwinnett County definitely is trying their best to accommodate that. But you also have to think about land. There's only so much land here. Where are they going to continue to build? And so that's where I know this article talked about right here, building more multifamily homes and apartments and duplexes. And I think what they're referencing is, compared to single family homes, there's going to be more apartments, more duplexes, more ways to get in more homes. I'm sure you've noticed with new construction, even single family, you're not seeing large lot sizes now. Unless you're in the multi-millions, they're not doing large lot sizes. And that's because of two different reasons. Number one, land is expensive. So for a builder to make their money back, they have to only use a certain amount of land and build on there to make their money back, you know, per square foot, per acre. And the second thing is, a lot of counties, Gwinnett included, they are not allowing builders to build a certain product on a larger plot of land, because they are trying to be conservative when it comes to, you know, the options that we have for the land here. Anthony, good to see you, my man. Happy spring break. You were at the Masters, I heard. Dude, I need tickets. The thought of it sounds scary, but at the same time, I understand because of the school systems, we'll likely need to build more schools to accommodate everyone. I 100% agree. I just hope that they will kind of look at what's coming down the pipe and try and do that ahead of time. Because, like with Mill Creek, there were so many parents that were very frustrated because that school was just so packed full of students. And finally, opening second year really did help relieve a lot of that. But I feel like it was kind of an afterthought. So I'm hoping that they will go ahead and think of these things, ahead of the curve. But I'm considering moving to Jefferson where the student to teacher ratio, why can't I say that? Where the student to teacher ratio is smaller. So that's one of the things I know Naomi was also referencing, moving further out. A lot of people have made the move to Hall County. We've had some people that left Gwinnett County and went to Hall County and even Jefferson. Jefferson is one of the places they have your traditional public schools, but then they also have Jefferson City Schools, which if you know anything about the area, it's run very similar to Beaufort City Schools, where there's a lot more parent involvement. There's a lot more parent voting. The city can basically vote and decide what they want to do compared to county schools. Whatever the governor decides, that's what's happening in the county schools. And so, take masks, for instance, in 2020 or 2021, when we went back to school, Beaufort and Jefferson took parent voting into perspective to see, do they want to go back with masks? Do they not? Where county schools, it was mandatory. There was no voting on it. It's what's happening in the state. So that's what's happening in the county schools. So that is something that we are seeing a lot, Anthony, with just different people going to smaller areas where the teacher ratio to the students is a little bit smaller. Right now, I think I have one that's in elementary school here in Gwinnett County, and I think there are 24 children in his class. So not a huge class, definitely more than when I was a kid, but obviously there's a ton more people here than when I was a kid. Education, I think, will suffer. There needs to be a better incentive to keep the teachers. Ooh, that's a great point, Betty. Thank you. We've lost a lot of teachers the last year, you guys. And so that is something that we need to look at. And Gwinnett County, sadly, was one of the locations that we were losing some of the teachers. What are going to be the incentives to keep the teachers here, especially the great ones, the great teachers that have been here for a long time? A good friend of mine, I won't name her name just so I don't call her out, but she's been in teaching for 19 years. She was a teacher at North Gwinnett High School for 16 years. Then she went to the math school over in Lawrenceville, and then she went to Beaufort. She's been all over. She's a fantastic teacher. She actually ended up pulling out of teaching altogether because of the politics. She said, I just want to spend time teaching my students. I want to prepare them. I want to love on them. I want to help them learn. And I don't want to have the politics getting in the way of what I'm teaching my students and how they're able to learn and how I'm able to teach them. And so that's a great perspective, Betty, of what are we going to see as far as our teachers, especially if we're having more people coming in. We're going to cross that $1 million that would be great, million people threshold, and we're needing more schools. We're obviously going to need more teachers to fill those schools. What are we going to do to incentivize those teachers or our young students? Again, our young students that are coming up, what are we going to do if we're seeing a lot of teachers pulling out? What are we going to do to tell those students, hey, have you ever thought about being a teacher? Especially if they're just getting out of school, it better be a good, scenario for them, a positive, that when, as they get out of school, that they want to go ahead and go to school further to be a school teacher. We have another friend that was a math teacher for years. And again, she said the politics, I can't deal with it anymore. I want to focus on my kids, and the politics are getting into the schools and not allowing us to really focus on the kids. And I know that all teachers are good teachers, in my opinion, because there's no way that I could sit in front of a class of 24 children and teach them all day, every day. Obviously, we've got better teachers than others, and the ones that are fantastic teachers that truly love their job and really desire to teach the students and pour into them, those are the ones that I feel like are being hurt the most because they do truly believe in what they're doing and changing lives. And if we're not giving back to them in a way that is going to give them fulfillment and give them the power to do what they are great at, because let's face it, can you homeschool your kids all day? I didn't think so. So it is so important to have these teachers in place and to give them the tools that they need in order to continue to teach our children and bring them up, because these kids are our next generation. These are going to be our business people. These are going to be our realtors and our accountants and everything else. So they need a good foundation. But going back to this article, I find it interesting that they talk about more multifamily homes, apartments, and duplexes. If you've looked around, especially in Gwinnett County, you really do see more of this, especially like Mall of Georgia area. Just a couple of years ago, it was just the mall. And now over the course of the last 3 years, I would say 3 or 4 years, they've really built up that area. It's a combination of condos and apartments on every corner you see. And a lot of things that I'm also noticing is that they're pouring sidewalks a lot of places, because if you're not from Georgia, you're from, I've heard New York, Miami, California, the walkability factor here is not fantastic. If you're in the city of Atlanta, it has a little bit more. But if you come out to the suburbs, walkability was not ever considered or thought of here. I personally live about 5 to 7 miles, I'll say. I'm not good at that kind of thing, but I don't live terribly far from Swanee Town Center. I can drive to Swanee Town Center in 7 minutes or less. So am I going to walk to Swanee Town Center? That's a hard no. Hard no, because by the time I get there, I will need deodorant and water. So the walkability factor, even though we have sidewalks and they say that you can walk there, do you want to walk there is a completely different ballgame. And so now they're trying to go back and pour these sidewalks and do these greenways. And I love them. I think it's a great idea. And maybe if I get an electric bike, come back to me on that. I might get an electric bike. That might be something I could do, because then I could get there and I don't have to drive. I do see a lot of people, our neighbors right next door, they have a one wheel, and the dad has a one wheel, and both kids and the wife have those hover situations. I can't think of what they're called at the exact moment, but they all get on their little wheelie deals and they just wheel on out. They go to all of their practices. They've got baseball practice they can get to. They go to the parks and those things. So it is an option. And I like the fact that they're thinking about this, because for the longest time, I'll be 40 in 2 weeks. And, this was never a big thing growing up for us here. So I do like the fact that they are trying to, kind of put everything together. The fact that I have the option now to get to Swanee Town Center or even to downtown Sugar Hill, any of these locations with sidewalks, the walkability factor is there. You're just going to need a little electric assistance. With the influx of people moving to Gwinnett, is there an area you think will have better equity? What area would you recommend? I think that would really depend on if you're trying to stay in Gwinnett or if you're trying to leave Gwinnett. Trying to stay in Gwinnett, my thing is this: if you already own a home in Gwinnett County, don't sell it. I hate to say that as a realtor, because I would love to help you sell that home. However, home prices in Gwinnett County, because of the influx of people, are going to continue to rise. And if you already own a home in Gwinnett County and you have the option to hold on to that home and then move, instead of thinking of selling that property and getting something else, or maybe buying an investment property somewhere else, keep this property as your investment property. then buy a home elsewhere. You may have to buy a cheaper home elsewhere. But if you can hold on, if you have the ability to hold on to your property that is in Gwinnett County, you will be doing yourself a serious favor, because unfortunately, 10, 15 years down the road, when my kids, your kids, whoever are trying to buy homes, it's going to be unaffordable for them to buy homes in Gwinnett County. And so if you have a home here, it's something that they can either live in, it's something that you can sell and have retirement on, it's something that you can be putting a renter in right now and having steady income, because Gwinnett County is one of the number one places that people want to go to. Why would you not be able to get a renter in there very quickly? Now, if you're looking at where should we move to, Flowery Branch is constantly growing. Another one is Canton. Canton, it has seen a lot of growth. They are still, I will say, semi-rural, but there's been a lot of growth there. Homes there still have larger lot sizes. It still feels a little bit country, but you still have all of your modern conveniences not far away. And another area is Jefferson. Anything going north. Now, Pendergrass is north as well, but Pendergrass has not seen as much growth because it's very, what's the word? There's a lot of warehouses, industrial. It's very industrial. A lot of warehouses are there. A lot of big box, locations are there. So Jefferson has been another one that's really popular, especially because they have Jefferson City Schools, which a lot of people have really been drawn to, because again, like I mentioned, Beaufort City Schools were like the thing, right? So many people wanted to get into Beaufort City Schools. But over the last few years, it's been really tough to get into Beaufort City Schools, because used to, with Beaufort City, you could tuition in, you could pay $2,000 and you would get into the school. Well, then there was such an influx of people that they kind of had to start cutting that off. Then you could only get in kinder, 6th, and 9th. And then they cut that off. It was only kinder and 9th. Now I think that they've kind of cut off tuitioning altogether, because of the simple fact there's just been so many new construction opportunities that were within the school district that they have as many kids as they can handle. They can't take any more kids. So if you live out of district, it's no longer an option for you to tuition in. Jefferson City has seen a lot of growth, because that is another great public school where there still is a lot of voting by the parents, parent involvement. And that's something that unfortunately with county schools, you're not seeing as much of. And so a lot of people have really been drawn to the Jefferson area. There's still a lot of growth opportunity there because there's a lot of land opportunity there. It's an adorable little city. So I think Jefferson is definitely one to watch. And Monroe. Monroe is definitely one to watch. A lot of people, I think, sleep on Monroe because it's always been considered like, just a little country town. But that country town is seeing a lot of growth. They've done a lot of renovations in downtown Monroe. There's been a lot of new construction in Monroe, some very beautiful custom homes going in at extremely reasonable prices, which is something that you're not seeing in a lot of Gwinnett County. So Monroe is another one that I definitely think you're going to start to see some things coming up in that area. Joe, hey, I'm glad you made it. Do you feel that it's a good time to get into Cumming, Georgia? I always feel like it's a good time to get into Cumming, Georgia. So I don't know if you watched my video on Cumming a couple weeks ago, but one of the things that I think a lot of people don't realize is, no, you can't look at a map and see that Cumming is split into 3 different areas, but it truly is. For the locals here that think about Cumming, our immediate question is going to be, well, are you talking about north or south? Because it's completely different ball games. Because South Cumming, it feels like Swanee to me, or it feels like Alpharetta to me. South Cumming is right in the middle of like Johns Creek, Alpharetta, Swanee. Some people are like, I didn't even realize I was in Cumming. I thought I was in Sugar Hill or Swanee. Because as you drive down Highway 20, you actually leave Swanee and Sugar Hill and you go into Cumming. So there's like this gray area there. And then that's on exit 14. If you go down to exit 13, that's where the collections of Forsyth, You've got Polo Fields, which is a beautiful community. You've got Vickery over there, which is an absolutely stunning community, probably one of my favorites in Forsyth. And then if you drive down one exit further to exit 12, McFarland, then you've got Halcyon. Go down one more exit to 11. Now you're in Alpharetta. You've got Avalon right there. But that's just to show you how close all of those are to each other. So in southern part, and South Forsyth is a top rated school. If you look that up, go to schooldigger.com or any of the sites, you can look up South Forsyth High School. It is a fantastic, highly rated high school. I always suggest to people, though, if you're looking at any of the schools, look online, get an idea of where you want to be, but then don't just go off of that, because sometimes these, credit ratings, I guess it is really a credit rating of the school, is not always, the kit and caboodle. You're not getting all of the information. So make sure that you log on to Facebook or Nextdoor, some of those apps that make me absolutely insane for a lot of reasons. But you can log on to these and you can talk to people. You can tell people, hey, I'm thinking about moving to the area. I know nothing. I know absolutely nothing about South Forsyth High School. Who has kids that go there? Do you love it? Do you hate it? What's great? What's not? Because those parents are involved in that school. They're in that school every day. They're going to be able to tell you more of what you can expect from the school instead of just having a rating that's online. I know if you look like in Swanee, for instance, if you look at North Gwinnett and you look at Lanier, online North Gwinnett looks far superior to Lanier. But when I talk to parents a lot, I don't hear complaints about either. I don't hear complaints about Lanier. It's a newer school than North Gwinnett, so a lot of parents just have been used to being in the North Gwinnett cluster, but I haven't had any complaints about Lanier. I've talked to teachers at North Gwinnett and Lanier. They've all said Lanier is a fantastic school. Now, obviously, I haven't been there. I don't have kids there, and so I can't speak on that. Plus, as a realtor, unfortunately, our hands are tied behind our back a lot of times of what we can say. So we have to give you guidance as to this is what I would look up. And a lot of realtors will just give you guidance to look up, schooldigger.com or those that have the ratings. I'm not all about the ratings. A lot of times the ratings are because of testing and because of funding. Well, that's not everything. It's everything to me is what's good for your kid. So I would definitely suggest making sure that you're getting on those platforms, talking to other parents, talking to other teachers, going in the schools, asking for tours. They are very, very specific about giving the tours just because obviously safety issues. So you do have to call ahead and make sure that you get those. So I would definitely make sure that you do that. Joe, I visited North Forsyth High School and we liked it a lot. Yeah, Cumming has some fantastic high schools. Forsyth County as a whole has some great schools, whether it's elementary school all the way through to high school. Cumming is one of those areas, like I said, the southern part is going to be a little bit more densely populated. It feels like Alpharetta or Swanee. Then as you go into the central area, it actually gets a little bit more rural in the central area. You've got larger lot sizes. You still have all of your modern conveniences. So I don't want to say it's rural, but it's going to take you 15 to 20 minutes to drive to them. Where on the south side, there's a Starbucks or a gas station on every corner. And then when you get to the north side, surprisingly, a lot of people think the further north you go, the less populated. That's not the case in Cumming, because as you get to the north side, you get to Dawson, which it's funny because Dawsonville was one of these areas that 10 years ago, Dawson was like the country. Now, because of the Georgia 400 outlet malls, they've also built everything. You've got a Restoration Hardware outlet. You've got Hobby Lobby, Target, Walmart. No, not Target. I'm sorry. Take that back. You've got Walmart, Home Depot, anything you can think of except a Target and a Costco. They don't have a Costco, but you can just drive 15 minutes south to Cumming to have that Target and the Costco. But so as you get to the north side, you're starting to get a little bit more populated again. And the great thing about Cumming and Dawsonville, for that matter, they're both really close to the lake. So if the water is something that's intriguing to you, or you and your family like to get on the water, that's definitely something that is great about that. Cumming is a beautiful area. It is. It definitely is. So I grew up on Lake Lanier. My grandparents had a place in Cumming, and so they lived there for quite some time until they ended up actually moving up to Dawsonville. So Cumming is definitely a beautiful area. I feel like it still kind of has that slower pace of life that Georgia as a whole used to have. Cumming in Forsyth County as a whole is just really holding on to that vibe, and I, for one, really appreciate it. So let me know if there's any questions you have. You can always call me, text me, DM me, email me. I appreciate you guys jumping on today. It was fantastic to talk to you. I wish all of you a fantastic rest of spring break, and I'll see you guys next Thursday at 6 o'clock.